So the first thing I'll do is show you the Canvas platform, because this describes the MOOC project. So you'll find this under modules, and then way down near the bottom of modules under the MOOC, you'll find this MOOC project on the TESOL MOOC project page. So you're asked to create a home or an introductory cover page, the home page. It's like a title page on the assignment. And then you're asked to have an announcement section with your welcome to the course message. Just like the TESOL program on Canvas has a welcome message at the beginning. So you're asked to do that. And then you're asked to include at least 2 modules, which could be part of a longer course, but you're only asked to create the first 2 modules. And each module will be at least 3 pages. You're asked to put quizzes into it and have assignments, homework and exercise pages, and social media, a link to your newly created social media for this course. For instance, on Instagram and Facebook, or eTESOL Pakistan, or eTESOL Iran, eTESOL Turkey, eTESOL International, etc. So that describes what you're required to have in this MOOC project. It's right there on the Canvas platform for you to refer to. Okay?
Okay.
So just have to stop sharing this so that I can get my next document open up.
Daniel?
So, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm wondering, it's just to make it a little bit more interesting. Right now I'm learning to use blogs. Is there any way that probably instead sending this assignment on paper, in Word or PDF, what if I put all the content into a blog? And then in the blog, I can just delegate, like, welcome people, click there, and then they see something, biography of myself or whatever, and then the content. Do you think that can be a good idea, or is better just to stay with the PDF regular?
You could create a blog, and then you can send a link to the blog. You can email the link to TESOL for them to view it and mark it.
Perfect. Just because I found that it's a pretty cool tool to use.
Of course, yes. So, and blogs are definitely a part of the current and modern e-learning process. Definitely, yes. So now we're going to look at a document that I found online called How to Effectively Shift to Online Teaching, the Ultimate Guide. This is put out by TechSmith. So I would be happy to email this PDF document to you. I tried to search for the website where I found this PDF document originally, and I was not able to find the website again. So that's a problem with websites if you don't, and I didn't bookmark it. So if you don't mark these websites, you'll lose track of them. And I couldn't find this website again. Otherwise, I'd give you the link to it, but I'm happy to email you the PDF if you would like it. You can send me an email and ask me for it after the class is done. So this is a guide to how to humanize course content, leverage asynchronous learning, and transform your online teaching. The global COVID-19 pandemic has left universities and colleges scrambling to bring all courses online with little preparation or time for instructors to make the transition. And with the immediate and long-term future of higher education delivery uncertain at best, it's a safe bet that most of it, if not all courses, will require at least some online components. As such, Instructors who are new to the online learning environment may feel a lot of anxiety about how best to provide their students with the learning experience they deserve. Are you stuck trying to build online courses for the first time? Do you feel like you don't have the time to learn online learning best practices? Do you struggle to connect with your students in this new, fully online environment? Do your online classes feel more transactional than conversational? If you need to instruct, support, and teach students online, but struggle to do it in an authentic and personal way, then this guide is for you. In this guide, you will learn what is humanized online learning, synchronous versus asynchronous learning, what makes a quality online course, why video makes a difference, what to do before you build your course, how to build an effective online course, and 5 ways to make your course videos more engaging and accessible today. You can now turn your online classes into connected, active, and engaging learning communities. It's easier than you think, and we'll show you how. Imagine how your life could change if you ended every online course knowing your students could learn at their own pace. You built an active and inclusive online learning community. Your students felt connected to you and their classmates, and you feel connected to them. You created a humanized experience. Your students found the course enjoyable and satisfying. You were able to easily measure your content's effectiveness and student performance, and you could use the same content semester after semester, year after year, as long as it's still relevant. It's not a fantasy. By humanizing your content and leveraging the benefit of asynchronous learning, you can create courses that are as effective or even more effective as face-to-face learning. And that's why we created this guide. By applying the recommendations, tips, tools, and techniques within, you'll understand best practices that enhance the online teaching and learning experience and be equipped to make it a success. This guide offers resources, tools, and techniques that can be used by both individual instructors and institutions who wish to assist faculty making the transition to online teaching. For the instructors, faculty will learn best practices for creating better online learning environments for students, as well as ways to incorporate video into online learning to humanize course content, leverage the advantages of asynchronous learning, and provide a more complete and successful educational experience for both students and instructors. What is humanized online learning? Many students and instructors fear a lack of engagement or human connection in online learning environments. Research shows that students often feel online courses are less personal, offering an experience that can possibly match that of a face-to-face instruction. A lot of instructors report feeling the same way. It doesn't have to be that way. You simply need to humanize your course. In humanized learning, you foster and emphasize interpersonal relationships between students and instructors, and between the students themselves, that helps support better educational outcomes. As an instructor, you create an environment where students view you as a partner in learning. They know your face, and through course videos and other methods, they learn your personality as well. According to Dr. Michelle Pacansky-Brock, humanized online learning, this is her right here. Provides humanized online learning, supports the non-cognitive components of learning, and creates a culture of possibility for more students. By embracing differences between students and fostering a sense of belonging, it removes the potential for a cold, sterile learning environment and replaces it with one where students feel supported, cared for, and trusted. And students in online courses who feel more connected to their instructors and fellow students are more successful. And of course, she has written a book about this whole concept. Research from the Community College Resource Center showed that an online course's level of personal interaction is the most important factor in predicting sorry, I jumped a line there. Most important factor in predicting student grades. In fact, they found that students in low interaction courses earned nearly one letter grade lower than students in high interaction courses. Humanized learning increases the relevance of content and improves students' motivation to log in week after week. When students relate to an online instructor as something more than a subject matter expert and begin to conceive of themselves as part of a larger community, they are more likely to be motivated, be satisfied with their learning, and succeed in their course objectives. The benefits of humanized online learning: creates a sense of trust and community, motivates students to apply themselves so as to not let down their learning partner, builds an inclusive learning environment, supports the needs of all students, and ensures better student outcomes. Best of all, creating humanized online learning experiences is within your grasp. You don't need to spend years or months learning a new way to teach. You already know how to teach face-to-face, and we'll show you how you can take what you already know and apply it in new ways in your online course. I think that paragraph, that sentence right there, is key to most of your assignments. You already know how to teach face-to-face, and we'll show you how you can take what you already know and apply it in new ways in your online course. So you're not learning how to teach, you're just learning how to apply your teaching skills in an online environment. And one of the keys to that is asynchronous learning. So we've talked about synchronous versus asynchronous learning. We've talked about that before. So here's an example of synchronous learning with they're all in the class together there online. And then the asynchronous learning is when you're doing it on your own. So you're going to a webinar and you're looking at videos and you're studying a lesson that is prepared ahead of time, and you interact with that at your own leisure. You do quizzes and it's all tracked. So that's what the Canvas platform is. It's a form of asynchronous learning because you're reading the material at your own leisure pace when you've got the time, and then you're doing the quizzes. The Canvas platform tracks the quiz marks for you and keeps track of everything that you've completed. And that's a form of asynchronous learning. Why educators and students prefer asynchronous learning: maximum flexibility for students and faculty, easily scalable, the content can be refined and improved as needed, no restrictions on location or time of instruction, complements synchronous learning time by extending content life. It motivates students to engage with course content, instructors, and their peers. The content can be used for other courses without having to present live again and again. The content can be used in blended learning environments when face-to-face courses are available. And here's a chart that compares synchronous and asynchronous. What makes a quality online course? Anyone can put a bunch of content in an LMS and call it online learning, but a truly effective quality online learning experience requires more, and students expect more. A quality online course goes beyond the information shared from instructor to student. It includes all the elements that lead to better learning. Students want to feel their instructor cares about more than their grade. To be truly successful teaching online, instructors must actively and visibly engage with their students. Earlier in this guide, we referenced a study by the Community College Resource Center. That same research showed that students place a high value on interaction with their instructors, and their data shows that more instructor-student interactions led to better student outcomes. When instructors use interactive technologies in a consistent and purposeful way, students feel a greater sense of teacher presence. For example, students felt more cared for when instructors used videos and were active in chat rooms and forums. Providing quick feedback on student assignments or inquiries also made students feel a better connection to their teacher. How do we assess quality? Up until the early 2000s, course quality was determined by examining course content, pedagogy, and learning outcomes. Unfortunately, that method left out the most important part of learning, the learner's experience in the course. Today, educators assess quality via a more process-oriented approach that includes such things as student needs, use of data and information for making decisions, improved learning outcomes, and more. Popular models for course assessment include the Online Consortium's 5 Pillars of Quality Online Education and the Quality Matters rubric. The 5 qualities of quality online education are learning, faculty, students, scale, and access. To truly assess the quality of online learning, you must go beyond course design and acknowledge the importance of the nuances that make a course unique. Rather than assessing a single point in time, it should look at the whole course over time. It must also include the student experience. A good course assessment considers the interactions between instructor and student, students with their peers, and the overall sense of community provided by the instructor in the online learning environment. These can be assessed via examining emails or student forum posts, dialogue within forums, feedback from group interactions, end-of-course surveys, LMS reports on student interactions, student assignment results, and more. In other words, good course assessment measures the humanizing principles that make education more than just learning facts and figures. Then it goes on to give 7 key principles of quality learning. They are: encourages contact between students and faculty, develops cooperation among students, promotes active learning, provides prompt feedback, facilitates time on task, communicates high expectations, and respects diverse talents and ways of learning. Interestingly, none of the principles address the actual course content. Instead, they found that the interpersonal experience of the students best determines the quality of learning. Of course, in 1987, no one considered how these principles would apply in an online learning environment. However, in 1996, Chickering and Dr. Stephen Ehrman updated the principles to show how technology could support the principles in an online classroom. In essence, they argued that, used properly, the, at the time, new tools and technologies afforded by the internet software and others could enhance and improve the online learning experience for both students and instructors. In fact, they suggested that synchronous learning would be key. Humanizing your content through video and by encouraging student interactions with their peers and instructor provides the type of experience Chickering and Gamson identified as the most important aspects of quality learning. How to build an effective online course, what to do before you build your course. Every great course begins with a plan, And the more thought you give to your course structure, resources, activities, and assessments, the less you'll have to think on the fly. Before you begin building your course, gather everything you will need. You will be organized and ready to create a well thought out online learning experience. Fortunately, if you've already been teaching your course in person, you likely have most of what you need. You just need to prepare it for the pivot to online learning. First, identify your sources. If you've taught this course before, you have a head start. You can reuse all the materials from your in-person course for your online course. First time teaching the course, you can either develop your own core course resources from scratch or ask to share existing materials from a colleague or your department head. Gather resources. Put all of your course materials in one place, such as a folder on your computer or on Google Drive, OneDrive, or a similar online file storage system, etc., so you can clearly see everything and can access what you need when you need it. Include your syllabus, presentations and lectures, course packs, textbooks, quizzes, handouts, online resources, links, and notes from previous semesters. This is also a great time to make sure that you make sure what you have still fits your needs and add anything new you think would help students grasp the topics. Digitize what you need. If you still have resources that are print only, you can photograph or otherwise digitize them for sharing online. You don't necessarily need a fancy scanner. Just snap a photo of your printed document. Some software, such as Snagit, can extract text from your photo, if you prefer. You might need to digitize less than you think. Many print materials are also now available on the web with a little searching. A word of caution, though. Remember that any document you digitize must be accessible to students who use assistive technology such as a screen reader. That means, yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to know if once we are creating our own e-learning plan, can I just take the resources from other sites as long as I put where I took them from in the references?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And when you're using a resource from another site and you put it into your lesson, you can even identify right on the spot where the source is or what the source is.
Okay, thank you.
Just a little tiny caption beside it. Okay, so making sure that if you digitize things, they are accessible to students who use assistive technologies. That means photos of text documents won't work. Be sure you extract the text from your photo into a true digital document to ensure accessibility. If you build your course materials from scratch, you have the advantage to specifically choose content that is already web-based, engaging, and interactive. This is just a little ad for themselves. Once you have your materials in order, you are in good spot to begin the plan the details of how you'll deliver your online course. Map your course modules. Based on your course's competencies or knowledge objectives, organize your themes into logical topics so that similar skills or themes are taught together. Aim for 5 to 7 major themes in your course. These will become your modules. For each module, outline key concepts, which activities and resources you will include, and any academic or technical terms students should learn. Different modules can be different lengths, depending on how long you'd like to spend on each one, and how long it takes for students to learn the material. Here's a pro tip. keep online delivery in mind. Build ways for students to interact with you and their classmates. In-video conversations, virtual group projects, and collaborative problem solving are all ways to encourage humanized interaction, including guest lecturers is another great way to include different perspectives too. In this interactive conversation within NOMIA, formerly called TechSmith Relay, classmates discuss details of an assignment and are able to speak and answer questions conveniently within the video. Create learning objectives. What do you expect students to learn? Set 3 to 5 clear learning objectives for each module. They will not only help you focus your teaching, it will also help students know the expectations up front. Objectives should build on their prior knowledge and offer clear ways to measure progress and success. Think of Bloom's taxonomy to assign varied levels of thinking, skills, knowledge, and attitude, or simply using action verbs to create expectations of how students can show their progress. For example, at the end of a module, students will be able to identify the parts of a cell, explain their function, and discuss why each part is important to the whole. Do you know what is Bloom's taxonomy?
No.
No, I don't remember. I read about it.
That's fine. Let me just share an example here with you. And let me use this one. It's somewhat simplified. Bloom's taxonomy is based on remembering something, understanding it. So we'll work from the bottom up. Remembering something, understanding it, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. I was trying to make it a little bit bigger. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Trying to move it over a bit here.
Because taxonomy, and it's a way of learning, the levels of learning.
Yes, kind of. So at first you recall facts and basic concerns to define, duplicate, list, memorize. Then the next step up, you explain ideas or concepts, you classify things, describe, discuss, explain, identify, report, select, and translate. Then you use information in new situations. You execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate, integrate. I think it says integrate, schedule, or sketch. Then you draw connections among ideas. You differentiate between things, you organize things into categories, for instance, relate things to each other, compare, contrast, distinguish, experiment, question, and test. Then you justify a stand or a decision. You appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, critique. I don't know what that word is. And finally, you produce new or original work. Design, assemble, construct, conjecture, develop, formulate, author an article or whatever the case might be. So that's Bloom's taxonomy. Does that ring any bells?
I had heard about it, but I didn't have any idea about the name. Maybe I heard it in Farsi language, you know.
Sure. Bloom,
That's-
it's just, it's the name of the guy who put this chart together.
Oh, okay. Taxonomy, nice.
So that's what Bloom's taxonomy is anyway. And there are many different charts of it, so you could always look it up on the internet as well. Okay?
Yep.
Then I just have to stop sharing so I can switch the documents again. So by using Bloom's taxonomy to assign varied levels of thinking, of skills, knowledge, and attitude, or simply use action verbs to create expectations of how students can show their progress. For example, at the end of a module, students will be able to identify the parts of a cell, explain their function, and discuss what each part is important to the whole. So what are these, what do we call this, these phrases? At the end of a module, students will be able to identify the parts of a cell.
Final goal?
Not exactly.
That is the objective.
Yes. Which type of objective is it?
Lesson objective? Or
These are
Not
terminal.
enabling.
These are the terminal objectives, because it's talking about at the end of the module.
Yeah.
These are the benefits that the students will have.
Yeah.
And then we align the modules with the learning objectives. So this is just like building any lesson plan. The difference is that you're doing it with technology. So don't let this throw you off, the fact that this is it's supposed to be a MOOC project designed for online delivery. Don't let that throw you off, because it's really just like any other lesson plan that you've already built. And see, here's a pro tip. Don't be afraid to include extra content and activities in your course videos and other materials for students who may want to learn more. It can help inspire students' imagination, connect with different styles of learners, and bring more depth to the core content. So by including extra content, that means including extra videos, include pictures, bring in additional things that as you do with your lessons. And then here's your module map sample. This is a mapping out of your module, and you can put it together. These are quite handy to have, these kinds of mapping designs to help you organize your thinking. We call them mind maps. Have you heard that term before, a mind map?
Yeah. I usually draw it on the board, and I want students, to participate in some,
Yes.
subjects in class.
Yes, that's good. So if you have a mind map, it includes the different parts of the module or the lesson, and it just allows you to see the whole thing all at once, all presented as a diagram. And then, of course, there's assessment. Determine how to assess the learning and how you're going to mark the progress of the students.
For the assessment part, Daniel, you know that before you were talking about the Bloom's taxonomy. The assessment, where exactly in the pyramid is going to fit? Is it in analyze, create?
Maybe create.
Well, the top point, that create point, that's where the student will be creating something new out of what they've learned. So the assessment, let me just go back to that for a second.
Maybe analyze?
Why not create?
Because the assessment you are not creating. Maybe
You are
creating
not
will be the
creating
homework.
students.
Or evaluate will be the assessment.
Evaluate would be the assessment, I would say.
Yes.
I think that's where the assessment part would come in, is where the student justifies their decision. They appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, critique, or weigh. Oh, let me share the screen, sorry.
In my case, because I'm developing a Spanish course, let's say that my learning objective is to greetings in a first class, just to at the end of the class, students will be able to introduce themselves and others in informal or formal way. If I use the Bloom's taxonomy, where exactly my activities are going to, I don't know.
The activities would be here where they're demonstrating or interpreting, and where they're applying what they're learning with the new material.
So sorry, the activities will be where?
Under apply, use information in
Apply
new
activities.
situations.
Okay.
Where they execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate, interpret, operate, schedule, or sketch. Does that make sense, Vianney?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The activities will also feed into analyze.
Hello, Zara. Yes, the activities could also overlap into the analyze section.
Thank you.
Actually, the activities you could even argue that the activities would be within these three areas right here. Because in the understand layer, the students are explaining ideas or concepts. Classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize. Then in the apply, they execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate. And then in the analyze, they differentiate, organize, relate, compare. So these are all practical levels. Those three levels. Does that make sense?
Yes. For remember, do you think and remember the post, what's the name? Like the last activity before when you are wrapping the class, how do you call that? Post-assessment activity. Do you think that can be into the remember category?
I would suggest that the remember category would be at the beginning of a lesson, you would be remembering what you did in the last lesson.
But if it's the first lesson that you have in the first class?
Well, if it's the very first lesson, the very first class, then you're right. They're not going to remember anything from the day before because the day before didn't exist.
Yes, but I mean, if I want to evaluate if they remember what has been taught, maybe I can just evaluate that at the end of the class with the post-assessment activity,
Certainly.
correct?
That makes
Okay,
sense. Yes. Yes,
thank
that
you.
makes sense. Definitely. That makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Why video makes a difference. We've all had the experience of getting an email or text message from someone and wondering if the tone was positive or negative. And we've all wondered whether we needed to add an exclamation point to a sentence to let the recipient know we weren't angry. The truth is, it's hard to gauge a person's intent or personality through text alone. Now imagine an online course where all communication is text-based. Interaction between students and the instructor was done by email and/or discussion forums. For students, the only glimpse of the instructor's face might be a profile photo on their bio. Instructors likely would never see their students' faces. Students might not interact with each other at all, or only through impersonal discussion forums. As a student, would you feel connected to your instructor or other students? As an instructor, would you feel you know your students and could effectively gauge their understanding of course content? Of course not. To create a truly engaging and connected teaming environment, you have to put more of yourself into your course. Your students go to college to learn from expert instructors, and they want to see and hear from you. Let your personality show in your content and give your students the opportunity to do the same. That's where video comes in. Video has a number of benefits for online learning, including creating presence, increasing engagement. They're measurable, they have many uses, they're reusable, they easily integrate with most learning management systems. And then there are some references to studies that have been done here. So there's lots of material here in this document. I'm going to go now and show you, play for you a PowerPoint that I created for day one of the university course that I was teaching a few years ago. Now, I created this originally for in-person delivery in a classroom before the pandemic. So I did not have the recording over top of the PowerPoint originally, because as I was running the PowerPoint, I simply talked from the front of the room. But then when it came time for the online delivery, we were required to have material that could be used for asynchronous learning by the students. So I added the voice recording over the PowerPoint and posted it on the Moodle platform. So this recording is still on the Moodle platform and it will be there forever. You know, students 20 years from now, 50 years from now, students will be able to play this recording. That's fine. because it'll still be valid at that point in time. So let me just share this with you, and I want to show you a couple of things. So first of all, with this PowerPoint recording, do you see these little stars beside the numbers, just under the numbers at the side here?
Yeah.
That little star, that indicates that there is a recorded message with that slide. That's how you know if there's a recording on a PowerPoint. It puts that little star underneath the slide
That's
number.
pretty cool. I never saw that before. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'll start this, and this first slide and the recorded message with it it goes to honoring the fact that the university campus is on traditional First Nations lands of the Huron, Wendat, the Seneca, and more recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. So these are First Nations tribes of people who have been living on this land for thousands of years in the Toronto area. So let me just play the PowerPoint for you, and you'll be able to hear, I hope you're able to hear what it says. It is very important that we recognize the tradition and the heritage of the Indigenous peoples and nations who have been in the area around Toronto where the Tyndale campus sits for thousands of years. And with due respect and honor to those people, we have before us the slide that was prepared by Dr. Terry LeBlanc, the elder for the First Nations people for Tyndale as a campus. So I'm not going to read that slide to you, but I would encourage you to read it through and witness the history and the tradition and honor the peoples of the historic nations that have inhabited this area long before the invasion of European and Great Britain's colonial invasions. So with that in mind, we will move on to the next slide. Welcome to the visual arts component of the curriculum for the Ministry of Education for schools in Ontario. This class time that we have together is, in my opinion, an opportunity for you to have an adventure with imagination through art. As we work through this process, I would encourage you to keep an open mind and be creative, enjoy yourselves, and art, in my opinion, is the best class, the best way of students of all ages to enjoy themselves and feel comfortable and safe. If you have that philosophy with your students in your classrooms, you will have a much more enjoyable time, and so will they. Francis A. Schaeffer wrote this booklet, Art in the Bible, in 1973. His thinking and the philosophy behind his writing, I believe, is universal and timeless. We will look at the excerpt from page 10, which you cannot see very clearly in this slide. I retyped it on the next slide, so we'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to spend a brief time looking at the sculptures on the front cover. These sculptures were made by Alberto Giacometti. The title of them is Group 3, Homme 2. Homme being the French word for men, les hommes. So the spatial relationships between human beings was of great interest to Giacometti, and he studied it in many, many of his sculptures, these bronze castings. In this particular sculpture, the square base represents a timeless piece of the face of the earth on which strangers pass each other, never meeting, striding in their own directions and not having any interaction. Giacometti had a vision, a view of the human race as individuals that did not interconnect very well. I would encourage you to take that thought from this sculpture, and when you go into your classrooms, make sure that none of the children are in an isolated and individualistic relationship only with themselves. very crucial, especially through these electronic media, that we attempt to get the students to interact with each other, and very important for UTCs to interact with each other as well. So I encourage you to discuss things and share your thoughts and the drawings that we will be doing during this class time with each other throughout the course. This is the excerpt from page 10 of Francis A. Schaeffer's Art in the Bible booklet that he first wrote in 1973. Even though it was many years ago, that philosophy and the theology behind his thinking, I believe, is universal and timeless. I would like you to read this short paragraph and consider the reality that the theory that he is talking about here, the beauty of the arts within any culture, is definitely a cross-cultural philosophy. So even though this is written from the Christian perspective, the theory and the thinking behind Schaeffer's writing can definitely be translated into many different cultural, religious, and ethnic backgrounds. And I would encourage you to have that broad diversification in your thinking, not only related to this paragraph, but also the diversification of thinking when it comes to actually working with young children in the art environment. The ethical standards for the teaching profession through Anishinaabeg art are based on the original paintings, the artwork that was turned into posters by Bruce K. Beardy, a First Nation member of the Ontario College of Teachers and a faculty member at Lakehead University Faculty of Education in the Aboriginal Education Department. The Anishinaabeg art in this educative resource document was created by artist Bruce K. Beardy to inspire critical awareness, reflection, and dialogue regarding the ethical standards for the teaching profession. This slide shows you the cover only of the booklet. If we were actually in the classroom at Tyndale, there's a class set, you each would have one of these booklets to look at. But that not being the case, I scanned the entire booklet, and it also is up in your shared drive in the resource under the Visual Arts folder, and it is titled The Ethical Standards. That's the name of the folder. You can read and look at the entire booklet up there. I did that for your convenience. Otherwise, you'd have to struggle to find a copy of it somewhere. Normally, as preparation for your research paper, we would have a librarian visit the classroom and talk about accessing resources through the Tyndale Library. We're not obviously able to do that, so I would encourage you to go to the Tyndale Library and research the resources that are listed in the Moodle class outline for you. This paper is intended to get you thinking about the integration of the arts in a cross-curriculum environment and how that enhances student achievement or how it enhances their health and well-being. Please just focus on one of those topics. These are such vast areas of research and important areas of understanding that this is not intended for you to be writing a master's or doctoral thesis for me. Please keep it to a maximum of 3 pages typed, because if you type 10 or 30 pages, I'll stop reading after the first 3 anyway. I want you to be as succinct and compact with your thinking as possible. And the Cornett article that is referenced here, the Arts Integration Philosophy 5 Ps, that excerpt from the article for this paper for you, that is up in your Tyndale resources as well, but I also scanned that and put it in the shared drive, which might be easier access for you. Trying to make this as easy as possible, and this entire thing is a learning curve for all of us. So if you have any questions, by all means, send me an email about it. Please use my dmiller@betyndale.ca email address. And that's also the email address to which I would like you to send your documents, your research papers as PDF files so that I can mark them and send them back to you. the marking matrix for this research paper, the rubric, is also up in the shared drive. I put a scan of it up there for you to see, so that these are the 5 Ps, the philosophy that Claudia Cornett just going to stop there for a moment. I wanted to make sure, are you able to hear the recording?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can hear it okay? All right, that's
Yeah.
fine. So this reference to the 5 Ps, the author of this article, Arts Integration Philosophy, the 5 Ps, people, principles of learning, places, programs, and pedagogy, in the research paper that the students wrote, they had to refer to this article written by Claudia Cornett. Now, we can tell by the name of this person that this is a woman. Claudia is a woman's name. So on the marking on the assessment page, the assessment rubric, there was one spot where I had indicated that the students made good reference to the Cornett article. And then the next one was they made some reference to it, or they made no reference to it. And the least marked assessment of this item was they had no idea who Cornett was. Because some of the students, when they wrote the paper, I mean, most of the students, they did a good job of referencing the Claudia Cornett article, but there were some students who referred to Cornett as a he, and there were some students who referred to the five P's of arts integration, and they made up their own titles with the letter P at the beginning. They made up their own categories. So they didn't even know what Claudia Cornett was talking about. So they got 0 points on that item in the rubric, in the assessment rubric, because they just didn't even refer to her article. So anyway, very interesting experience. These papers that were written by these university students. And all of these university students had at least one other degree. They had their bachelor's, their undergrad bachelor's degree. This was their second degree for most of them. There were a few who already had master's degrees, and there were a couple of students who had doctorate degrees. So these are highly educated people, but they couldn't follow the simple instructions that I gave them in this research paper to talk about Claudia Cornett's 5 Ps, her principles of arts integration philosophy. I mean, intelligent people, but they couldn't follow the simple instructions. They made up their own titles, their own names of these principles, which
maybe they hadn't listened to your voice, they hadn't, they were not in classes, they didn't, participate, they just made something up.
Well, this PowerPoint presentation with the voiceover recording, this was the first time that I had delivered this class online. I had always done this class in person previously. So this was the first time it was delivered through the internet. And they had this PowerPoint up on Moodle. They had access to it for weeks before I began my course. And their instruction was to listen to this PowerPoint before they came to the class.
So they knew what they should do, but
that's right. But they just couldn't do it. So we'll continue with this. Are you finding this to be of some help? Is this helping you with some ideas?
It's nice. I liked it. And was it the art class?
I was teaching the visual arts for the Ministry of Education, for Ontario Ministry of Education, for these university students. They were getting their Bachelor of Education teaching degree.
Uh-huh. I really like it. Thank you.
So I was hoping that I would be able, it would give you some ideas to help you with your own MOOC project. So let's keep going for a little bit. These are the 5 Ps, the philosophy that Claudia Cornett bases her paper on. And these are the basis for your part of your reading in the research paper preparation. So I just listed the 5 titles up in the shared drive. The entire excerpt is scanned up there for you to read. And I would encourage you to read it through. It's only a few pages long, and it will give you a very good basis for working on your paper, regardless of which of the 2 topics that you decide to pursue. The idea binder. My thinking behind this little binder was that it would prepare you with a resource by the end of classes in this course to have all the information you might need as a reference for putting together classes in the PJ and JI panels where you'll be teaching. So I don't care if you have the little tiny binder. Some of you do have it and some. So just to explain to you what the idea binder was, it would literally a little wee tiny binder, a micro binder. And I called it an idea binder because inside they would use it to do artwork that would then become a reference for them to have when they were teaching classes, and they could show this to their students. And so they all made one of these idea binders. They all did this. So we were looking at the elements and principles of design, and we were talking about what makes art, how you create artwork. And we used it to generate a lot. They used it as a little reference notebook to put down ideas and make lists of things as well. So that's what the idea binder was, little tiny micro binder. The university bought these, so I bought hundreds of these. And we gave one to every student to have. It's a little pocket size. It would fit easily in a backpack or a purse. They could carry it with them, became a reference. And with this little binder that they developed, they were then able to have a resource that they could use to teach art at any level of elementary school, any grade of elementary school. And it was I designed it that way so that they had a full reference point. And each day, at the end of each of the days, they had to write journal entries and put down a few points of ideas, what things they learned and that sort of thing. So that's what the idea binder was. The idea binder. My thinking behind this little binder was that it would prepare you with a resource by the end of classes in this course to have all the information you might need as a reference for putting together classes in the PJ and JI panels where you'll be teaching. So I don't care if you have the little tiny binder. Some of you do have it and some of you don't. If you have any blank paper, that's just fine. Draw on any blank paper you have. Printer paper, a blank notebook. You might have actual artwork paper, that's fine. Borrow some blank paper from your little kids if you have little kids. Whatever you can come up with to draw on that's blank. Please do not use lined paper. That just won't help you with your drawings. It's going to confuse and interact in a difficult way for you from a visual point of view. So these binders are being marked. After days 1 and 2, you will submit photographs or scans of what you have completed, and I'll mark those. After days 3 and 4, you will submit the final 2 days of work that you do. Again, photograph them or scan them. And I think we'll need to be discussing between us in the Zoom call the best way for you to submit those for me. I'm thinking that perhaps up in the shared drive, if you go up and can you put a folder up there? Can you create a folder with your name on it up there? We need to discuss this because I believe you folks are more familiar with it than I am. But we'll figure out the submission process collectively when we're in the Zoom call. The rubric for marking each of the 2 days, the days 1 and 2 are marked together, and days 3 and 4 are marked together. Those rubrics are also up in the shared drive under the visual arts folder, again under Idea Binder. And you can go in there and look at those rubrics so that you can see what your target is to complete these as intensively as possible. This picture shows the cover of my little idea binder that I created as an original sample a few years ago. And I have scanned not only this cover, obviously, but I scanned my entire little set of pages from inside. Those also are up in the shared drive in the idea binder folder. So you can certainly go and look at my example to get ideas how to complete the different stages along through this little process. I also, a couple of years ago, I've had some fantastic submissions from TCs in other years with these idea binders, some beautiful results. And so a couple of years ago, I photographed several of them, and I have uploaded all those photographs up into the shared drive as well. So you've got lots of reference material. If you're uncertain about a point, if you're uncomfortable with the visual arts, my goal is to remove that discomfort and have you enjoy, but I understand you might need a reference point to jump off from. So be sure to look inside that idea binder up in the shared drive, and feel free to browse through all those photographs that are up there from previous classes. This is not an item that I'm marking based on whether you're a good artist or not. I don't know the definition of a good artist. Well, okay, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, okay, they were pretty good. But this is all about watching the results of your path of discovery, the journey that you go on with your creative process. I'm not looking for a perfect completion at the end of these. I'm looking for results that you have demonstrated to me, that you've investigated each little concept, each idea, and you have reacted to it and put something down on paper for me to have a look at. That's my philosophy. I'm not marking people on whether you're a good artist or not a good artist. I'm marking you on your creative process, your thinking, your distillation of ideas, and the result that you put down on paper. That's how I want you to think about all of your students as well. There is no right or wrong way of doing a drawing when it comes to artwork. The elements of design. These are the basic building blocks for any artwork, regardless of media. We happen to be working as drawings in these little idea binders, so that'll be our focus here. I would like you to do a page of each of these elements, indicating as many varied aspects of each element as you can possibly think of. I would encourage you also, if you have little children in the house with you, or children of any age, if you have kids with you at home, get them involved. Get them to help you come up with the drawings that you do for these pages. You're going to be teaching children out in the classrooms, so get them involved. Use them as your guinea pigs for how you're going to deal with the processing of this type of thing in the classroom. And because this was being delivered online, so there were a lot of these, the TCs, that's just short form for teacher candidates. So there were a lot of these teacher candidates who were moms, and they were at home with their kids during the pandemic. So they were attending their lessons, their classes online, and their little kids would wander into the room and they would want attention. So I encouraged the moms to, and in some cases the dads, I encouraged them to actually give the little kids paper and crayons and put them at the desk beside them. I said, your little kids just want to be with you. So give them paper and crayons, put them at the desk beside you and let them draw there, let them be there during the class. Didn't bother me. So that, and these little kids would work on their drawings, and after a little while they'd hold them up to the camera. They wanted to show everybody their drawings. They were very proud of this artwork they were doing. So it was interesting, very interesting experience. I also want to take this moment to say, if you do have little children and we're on Zoom calls, if your kids come into the room and need your attention, give them your attention. Let them listen to the class. Doesn't bother me one little bit. Little kids are absolutely precious and magnificent. They are the future, and we need to cherish them and take care of them. So involve them in what you're doing, because they will love it too. When you're doing a drawing of all different lines for your idea binder, give them a page, let them do some too. Talk it through, get ideas from them. Little kids are extremely creative, and they're not yet intimidated to thinking that they can't do it. So let them help you out with this process. Again, up the shared drive, you can look at all the examples from the little tiny binders that are up there, mine, previous class examples, and certainly get ideas for each of these elements. Principles of design are the mortar, the cement that hold the bricks, the building block foundation of the elements together. As we build a piece of artwork using the elements as the building blocks, we have to pull them together and stick them together somehow. That's where the principles come into play. Each of these principles, you're familiar with the words. Now we need to investigate how to take that word and turn it into a visual, emphatic representation that catches the eye. When we talk about good artists, bad artists, good art, bad art, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a judge. I don't judge anybody when it comes to whether they're a good or bad artist. But I believe a good piece of artwork is a piece of artwork that catches your attention and causes the viewer to stop, look at it, and react to it. Because just like a good book, if the good book is not well written, you won't finish it. You'll put it down. It did not catch your attention. Same thing with a piece of art. A good piece of artwork will grab your attention, hold you until you've thought about it and processed it through, and you react to it in your mind. Again, up in the shared drive, many pages of examples in the little idea binder folder from mine and other students previously. So we'll be discussing all of these during the Zoom calls anyway, but by all means, go up and look at those other examples, because reading the list here is not enough to help you out with it. Looking at the little binders up in the shared drive, that's not enough to help you sort through everything. We will be discussing these in the Zoom call as well. The creative process is an interesting thing. We use the creative process every day, whether we realize it or not. When we're trying to figure out what we're going to have for supper each night, we're using the creative process. We analyze what we have on hand, then we consider what we might want, then we put those two thoughts together and we develop something that we actually end up putting on the plate to eat afterwards. We don't think of it as a creative process, but it is. That creative process is the light bulb, the original idea, from which you then proceed on to the next step. What do you do with the light bulb? How you use the light bulb, the idea, and how you move forward in your creation determines the ultimate end result. It's very difficult for an architect to have a finished building and then do the drawings that go for it. The architect must do some drawings to figure out how the building is going to work before they build it. Very same process that you're going through with each drawing you're going to do and each drawing that the students in your classrooms will do. Going through the very same process. This image is taken from the Ministry of Education document. It's also in your course outline, so I'm sure you've seen it before. The memletic approach is the technical name that has been given to the psychology, the thought process that we use in our creative thinking. This memletic approach is a slide as part of the set of the other PowerPoint that is up in your shared drive folder. It's the main PowerPoint that I developed for using in the classroom setting, but it does not lend itself quite as well to the Zoom media. So go up and have a look at that other PowerPoint that's under the day one folder and go through it as well. It won't take you very long, mostly pictures, but it does give you some more information about the memletic approach. Differentiated learning is not the same as individual study projects for students. Differentiated learning is taking into account any difficulties, handicaps students might have, learning disabilities of different types, but also the different learning styles of each child, each person. The vast majority of humans on the face of the earth learn through visual instruction. But there are other people who learn better through hearing it orally. There are other people who learn it best by doing it with their hands. And everybody has a different learning style, a different learning approach that works best for them. That's why I'm showing slides and talking, because that means that I'm going to catch more people than if I just gave you slides to look at, or than if I just sat here and talked and expected you to listen, because that combination of the visual and the oral comes together to give you a better understanding, allows your brain to assimilate everything. At every stage of life, Erickson, in his studies many years ago, discovered that we develop from the beginning to the end. Goodness, we all know that anyway. Again, if you've got little kids at home and you see the drawings that they do, there are absolute differences than if you do a drawing as an adult, because the focus is different from a child's perspective. This chart, these stages of development that Erickson has analyzed, this fits nicely with the differentiated learning, because we need to understand the development level of the child in each age bracket. So whether you're a PJ or a JI candidate, you still need to understand the development from the beginning of infancy through into the adolescence ages. In the cases of UTCs, you're not going to be teaching beyond adolescent age, but you need to understand how the child develops. And I'm sure in your psychology courses at some point in time prior to this, you've had a look at this. You're probably familiar with this. And you're probably also familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, which we're not going to get into right now. But differentiated learning must take into account what the child needs in order to be successful. This also fits with your research paper in the particular topic of the health and well-being of the child specifically. So that's differentiated learning, and we're going to be talking a lot about it, I expect, in the classroom setting. Today's major class project is based on the concept of a repeated figure as an item that creates unity and harmony. The principle of repetition being the key point to bring the piece of artwork together visually. So, you know, if you're using just a piece of blank printer paper, you want to use a human figure as the particular shape that you're using, go to a magazine, cut one out or trace it on a piece of cardboard, something like that. And then use your cardboard as a tracing item and repeat it on the piece of paper. Whether you use colored pencils, crayons, borrow your kids' crayons, that's just fine. Doesn't matter what it is you use to add color to the picture afterwards. The whole concept of using repetition as the principle to pull the piece of artwork together, create unity and harmony, is the key point behind this project. Don't make these projects too big. If you get too big, then it's too time consuming. This can just be a small item. This can even be done totally inside the idea binder if you've got the little tiny binder. Again, the point of this is to give you a little bit of a practice actually doing it hands-on, so that goes with the visual of the slide that you're reading, as well as the oral of hearing me describe it. By the time you combine all three of those components, you will have covered all of your particular learning style requirements. The next slide will see an example of a repeated figure design. Michael Snow was a leading contemporary Canadian artist during the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and did a lot of work that was represented internationally in various different art shows. If you've ever been to the Eaton Centre, downtown Toronto, you may have seen the sculptures, the geese that are flying through up above in the glassed ceiling. Those geese are a sculptural piece by Michael Snow. If you Google Michael Snow geese, you'll see an interesting article about the fact that in 1982, the Eaton Centre, the Toronto Eaton Centre, tied red bows around the necks of all the geese as part of the Christmas decoration. Michael Snow sued the Toronto Eaton Centre, and because they were affecting his artistic rights to integrity, and the Ontario High Court of Justice actually affirmed that the artist always has the right to integrity of their work. And the operator of the Toronto Eaton Centre was found liable for violating Michael Snow's moral rights. So interesting things around these pieces of artwork, and every piece of artwork can create its own story, its own history. All right, I digress a little bit from today's project, but the example you see here of walking woman actually is the same woman shape repeated over and over, wearing different outfits and facing different directions. Michael Snow did a number of paintings of these Walking Woman series, and very interesting that you absolutely see how the repetition of one shape with the alteration of colors and designs on the dresses, that repetition pulls the entire piece together with a sense of unity and harmony. So there we have an example of a PowerPoint with voiceover recording designed to be used for both synchronous and asynchronous learning. As the students wanted to, they could go to Moodle and review it themselves. So were you able to get any ideas out of that example that you might be able to implement as you develop your MOOC project?
Yeah, that's good. I get it.
So can you identify an item that you might be able to use yourselves?
I'm not supposed to, make a project because I'm foundation, but I think I like to do it, because you can choose different subject and, add different things. It was very helpful for me.
Good. And yes, I think it is a good idea for you to have the practice actually building a project, Ada, because with online education moving forward, you are going to be having times when you need to develop something
Exactly.
for online teaching. And so if you practice it a little bit, then I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Great.
So very good. So we're just at the end of our time frame. Do you ladies have any questions you wanted to ask?
No, I'm fine. And I think we have just 1 or 2 sessions with you. Yeah, 2
There's
maybe.
only one more session with me next Monday.
Just 1?
Yes. And so next Monday, we'll be doing lesson plan presentations and observation. So those would be your 4 skill lesson plans. Or Vanny, if you want to present your MOOC project, if you
Vianney,
you're
cannot
muted.
hear.
Vanny, you're muted. That's okay. So next Monday, if you want to present a 4 skills lesson plan, then you can each share that with us. And Vianney, we'd love to see your MOOC project, even if you only have a little bit of it working. So I see the message, you put a message in the chat box. You have no idea why it's not working. Did it come unplugged? Did your microphone come unplugged or something? No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. That's all right. So that's fine. If you don't have any questions, ladies, then we're going to finish off for today.
Yeah, sure.
All
And
right. So
then this is Monday classes.
yes, have a good week. And
You too.
you'll see Anna Patricia on Wednesday and then Elham on Saturday.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'll see you next Monday. I look forward to seeing you next Monday.
Yeah, I hope so. Take care of yourself.
Thank you both for being here again today.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Vianney. Bye, Daniel. See you.